We're back in the tackle room, and today we're talking about this little guy, the hover rig, and how I fish it and catch fish with it in ways you probably didn't think about. Stick around, you don't want to miss this one. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing, and unless you've been living under a rock, by now you've heard of this little guy, the Core Tackle Hover Rig. This is the brainchild of pro angler Matt Steffen. If you're familiar with the technique of hover strolling, then you're familiar with this little thing. It's a jig that's meant to replace the complicated mess that you have to put together with a jig hook and a nail weight just to get the same effect. This will cause a bait to have a lot more glide on the fall. It will give them a lot more erratic action, kind of like a little bit of a spin, and it's not predictable. It's something different every single time. I think it reminds me a lot of a tube, of how a tube behaves underwater. So now you can get that same action with pretty much any bait that you want to put on it. A lot of guys have been using a lot of different baits with it, but I try to go outside of the box. So those are some of the things that I want to share with you. I've had a lot of chance to fish with this, and well, I've come up with quite a few things that I think you guys are really going to like, and I think they're going to be useful with you and help you catch a ton more fish. So first up, let's go ahead and talk about the baits that I like to use. Now, everybody is probably using one of these, right? A caffeine shad or a fluke style bait. It is excellent on a hover rig. This may be a lot of people's go-to, or something similar, something that's got a flat, wide body, something that's going to give you a lot of glide on the fall anyway. Well, that hover rig will just accentuate this. A caffeine shad or another type of fluke bait, Zoom Super Fluke, or any of those will work amazingly well. See, I like using something like this little guy. This is, well, it's actually a Ned rig bait from Perfect Plastics. It's Dudley's pre-rigged Ned rig, but it's got a flat little body. It's got little bitty ribs on it. I mean, you can see there. And on a small 3/64 size hover rig, this thing is actually exceptionally potent. I've caught quite a few fish, especially fish that are finicky, fish that don't want to commit. You dangle something like this in front of their face, and it's basically like bringing the Ned rig to them and putting it right in their face. A lot of times you take a Ned rig and you fish it, and you drag it along the bottom, the fish comes up and eats it. Well, this basically, the way that I was doing it, brings the Ned bait to the fish, and I've had quite a bit of success using this. There we go. I got him. He's a little one, but I got him. Yep, no skunk. All right. Little one on the hover rig. He might be a pound if he's got stones in his pockets. On the hover rig with the Dudley drop shot, or Dudley Ned rig thing. Oops. Good little bass. Let me start. I need to dunk you in the water. Thank you, little dude. I really appreciate that. And that's just one of the things that I like to use. Another thing is, well, a grub. This is a Zoom Fat Albert, and almost like a salt and pepper type of color. This, I mean, I'm telling you what, everything was hitting this. I caught shellcracker, I caught bluegill, and I was catching bass with this little bait right here. On a hover rig, well, what happens is that tail kind of acts a little bit differently. It puts a little bit of drag on it, so there's a little bit of resistance, and it actually slows the fall. You don't get as much of a glide, but you get a much slower fall, almost like, the bait's got a parachute on it. And like I said, I was getting everything from bluegill, shell cracker, I even got a big shiner on one of these. I got small bass, and I even got a couple of nice bass using something like this. So, expand what you would use, experiment, try different things. Don't ever sleep on a grub. They're an effective bait, but on the hover rig, they do something completely different. And another bait that I like to use that I find is exceptionally uncommon, which is strange because it's my go-to for the hover rig, that's a stick bait. Just a regular 5-inch Seiko, which is what we have here. This is just a regular soft plastic stick bait. This is a Yum Dinger, I believe. And I've caught, I don't know, it's seen better days. I've caught quite a few fish on it using the hover rig. And the way I rig it on there is pretty much a normal rigging. I don't do anything fancy with it, but it allows me to skip up underbrush, and it allows me to get a lot better fall, a fall you just don't normally get, like with a wacky rig or with a Texas rig, even a weightless one. That hover rig gives me a more unique presentation, and as they always say, show them something different. And to that end, I'm trying to do that with this stick bait. But bear in mind, a lot of the times I have to fish it up into some slop. So I came up with a method for that too. And just today, I was fishing this guy right here. This is a Texas rigged hover rig. I figured out how to Texas rig a stick bait, or any bait for that matter, onto a hover rig. And if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you've been around since, winter or even up into the pre-spawn, you'll know that I caught a 7-pound sow female off a bed with a Texas rigged hover rig. So I know they catch fish, and it saves me a lot of trouble because that exposed hook where I fish, well, a lot of times that can just be trouble, and it's something that I want to try to avoid. So let's go ahead and take a minute, and I want to explain to you and show you just exactly how I'm doing the Texas rig for these.
Gotcha. Come here, you. I gotcha. You're not going anywhere. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, kids. Oh, that's a real good one. Oh, that's a good one. He's pulling the boat everywhere, so I got you. Oh, that's a... Oh, lowbrow got an 8-pounder. Ooh. 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 Oh, that's a big fish. And this here is the Texas rigged version of the hover rig. It took me a little bit to figure out, but once I got it, it wasn't too bad. This is the 3/64 size hook. This is just a regular 5-inch stick bait. This is one of them that I make, and it works exceptionally well. It's really in those tight places, like if I'm skipping under flooded brush, if I'm trying to get it way back in there and not get hung up on a branch or something. Now, it does have a failing. This right here, that little T right there, now that's going to catch some grass, but it's not going to catch branches. So it might come back with a little bit of gummy on it, but it will come back whenever you're fishing the thick stuff, the slop. So I'm going to show you just exactly how I'm doing this. All right, what we're going to do, we've got the 1/8 size hook. We've just got a regular 5-inch stick bait here, and we're going to take it and we're going to poke it and stick it out like you normally would. Now we're going to go ahead and slide it up, and just like you would a Texas rig, we're going to turn it up and over like that. We're going to take that eye and we're going to poke it through where it's like that on that side. Cover that cap up and text pose that hook. Boom. There you go. Right? So you've got a Texas rigged hover rig, and this thing, I'm telling you what, I love this thing. Those of you who have watched the channel for a little while, back in the spawn, I caught a 7-pound big sow female with this exact setup.
And finally, I want to talk about something else. I mentioned it briefly in a recent video, and that is how I actually rig the flukes or the soft plastic jerk baits whenever I'm using a hover rig. And I'm showing you just exactly what I've got here. And this is a Zoom Super Fluke. And as you can see, I've got it rigged sideways. I've got it, instead of, being like this, I've got it turned like that. Now, what that does is that actually gives me way more glide. I mean, you thought it had a lot of glide before. This really gives it a lot of glide without actually increasing or decreasing the fall speed. The fall rate is still, it goes down pretty good, but it's got way more glide. It's got way more swirl. It's very reminiscent almost to fishing it like a soft plastic jerkbait, in the fact that I get a lot of swirling, I get a lot of twirling, I get a lot of glide, and those fish love that. I can catch, well, again, I've caught shellcracker, bluegill, but I've caught a lot of bass doing exactly that. This thing skips like a dream. You know me, you know that I'm skipping under flooded brush. That's going to be my bread and butter. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be skipping any bait that I can, a lipless crankbait, a chatterbait, a hover rig, whatever. I've got to get to those fish. And this thing skips, well, it even skips on accident. It slides right across the top of that water. So this is just something that we've got turned to the side. And let me show you how I'm doing that.
Okay, we've got a Strike King caffeine shad here, and we've got a 1/8 ounce hover rig. So what I like to do is I actually like to rig it instead of this way, right? I actually like to rig it on the flat side. So we'll come back like that, and then we'll come through, and then poke her out, slide it up, hop it up and over, and then this way, when it's rigged like this, you want to talk about having some kind of glide. This thing glides forever. It has got such, that water, it almost acts like a wing as it goes down into the water. This is my much preferred method of rigging up something like a fluke, or even something like a Berkeley power stinger. If I can rig them up sideways like this and really take advantage of that flat side body, then that's something that I'm going to do. That gives me, I feel, a lot more action. It really accentuates what the hover rig was designed to do. And I can really skip way up under brush with that. So overall, it's a much better type of presentation, what I'm trying to accomplish as far as getting that glide.
So we've got a few different presentations. I've done some experimentation, and I've been able to catch fish various different ways. What that means is the hover rig is actually exceptionally versatile. If you give it a chance and put some time in with it, you'll see that it is a very versatile fish catching tool. It's not a one-note thing, The idea of hover strolling, I guess, is it can be very one-note. It's more, it's a lot like using a Demiki rig or something like that, or drop shotting out deep, but it's more than that. There is so much more to it, and there's many layers to it. So if you want to take the time to peel those layers apart, you'll find that it is a very potent fish catching tool. So there you have it. My tips and tricks with the hover rig. I've had several months to work with this thing, learn the ins and outs and how it works best for me. And one of the things that I found is this is not a one-hit wonder. This is not a one-note thing. It's an everyday bait for me. I have this tied on with my Texas rigs and my jigs every single time I go out to the lake. I've lost count of how many fish I've caught with this thing. So experiment with it yourself. Try some of the things that I put in this video and let me know how they worked out for you. I'd be interested to see if the Texas rig or rigging the fluke sideways, how that works for you. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.